The most important concept in finance is the time value of money. It refers to the fact that the value of money changes over time. And it could be explained very easy, taking a very plain example. Imagine that you are depositing in a bank $100 today, and you deposit it for 1 year. And then after a year has passed, you go to the bank and you expect that they return your $100 to you, but also you expect that there is something additional paid on top of it. This additional thing is called interest rate, and it is paid to you because it compensates the fact that you could not use or consume your $100 for the 1 year period. So it is only natural that you give $100 to the bank, and after a year you receive back $100+. So for example, if the interest rate was 5%, after 1 year you receive $105. And this is a fairly straightforward notion. It is the idea that if you sacrifice some of your flexibility and give your financial funding to somebody else, you expect that after a while you should be compensated. The future value is as follows. A valuation of $100 today, after 1 year, should be 100 plus something. When we're speaking about future value, this is the very simple formula for calculating it. It is the value of cash flow after several periods of compounding. So let me explain the formula. First of all, FV obviously corresponds to future value. FV equals C0. C0 means cash at the moment now. So whatever we have had in the beginning of the period is here at the C0. For example, $100. And then we multiply this with the so-called interest rate factor or interest factor. The interest factor, if we look between the brackets, is basically taking 1, which corresponds to the amount we have today, and it is summed up with the R, which corresponds to the additional interest rate that we should receive. Expression in the bracket is to the power of n, where n is the number of periods which this investment is compounded. So, for example, if we leave this deposit for 2 years, it will be compounded once after year number 1, and at the end we will have $105, for example, and then we should compound or accumulate the interest rate over the $105 instead of just $100. So this is why we have a power to the n. N corresponds to the number of periods. So basically this is how we calculate future value of funding gone through compounding of interest rate. Correspondingly, we could, of course, solve a case here. Let's assume that John places $800 in savings account paying 6% interest, compounded annually. He wants to know how much money will be in the account at the end of 5 years. So we have very simple, fairly straightforward calculations here, computation here. $800 times 1 plus 0.006. So it is 6% is 0.006 to the power of 5. And if we compute it, we will get the answer of $1,070.58. And this is the future value of the $800 we have today with this compounding. Now, the other idea, the so-called present value, is somewhat opposite to thinking when we're describing the future value. So, if we have an expected cash flow after 1 year, let's say $100, and we have at the same time in our pocket currently right now $100 in our pocket, in our possession, and if we compare the both cash flows, we will see very easily that the dollars that are currently in our pocket are disposable to us and are more useful and thus more valuable. So basically, discounting is done whenever we would like to analyze how much an income that we expect to receive after a given interest of time should be estimated at the moment now. And obviously, what would happen is that if we're expecting an income after a year, an income of $100, these $100, since we cannot consume them right away, are valuable less than 100 as of today. So this is the present value of a future cash flow. So now let's check the formula. Present value, PV, is equal to the cash at the end N period, and it is multiplied by the so-called discount factor. The discount factor is on the right. It is 1 over the denominator, which denominator looks very familiar because this is exactly in the denominator we have exactly what we had in the future value, which is the interest factor. And so if we make this example, let's assume that Pamela wishes to find the present value of $1,700 that she would receive in 8 years. Pam's opportunity cost, which means alternative possibilities for earnings, is equal to 8%. And if we make the calculations using the mentioned formula, we will reach to the conclusion that Pam's $1,700 after 8 years should be evaluated at about $918 currently today. So what Pam now knows is if she has $1,700 as of now in her pocket, how do they relate to the future value of $1,700? I will try to sum up here with the present value. Present value is the current dollar value of a future amount, the amount of money that would have to be invested today at a given interest rate over a specified period equal to the future amount. It is based on the idea that the dollar is worth today more than a dollar tomorrow, and it is called the transferring of future values to current values to present values is called discounting. There are other examples that we could review here. I'm going to show you the connection between compounding and discounting here on this chart. we have the present value at the moment now, taken from a different, discounting the cash flows from different points of future time. Let's say we are discounting $3,000 from year 1, $5,000 from year 2, and so on. And we will arrive at the number of which corresponds to the present value of this project. And the same goes if we are trying to compute the future value of all these cash flows, the future value as of the year 5. And we can see that compounding brings us increase in value because it is more and more time passes and more cash flows are being put through interest rate. So as a general, what we have as a connection of present value and future value, you should remember one thing. They both represent the same idea. The value of money changes over time, and the dollar today is more valuable than dollar tomorrow. It is the same analysis, but for different points in time. Future value calculates the value received at a future point of time, whereas present value calculates the value estimated at the current moment. So what did we do so far in our final lecture? We had reviewed the main principles in finance. First of all, cash flow matters the most, referring to the fact that we should watch after the real cash flow instead of accounting profits. Second of all, money has a time value and it changes over time, and $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow. And future value, of course, means that if we lend somebody money, we should expect increase of the return value, increase of value of the return money. We should expect compensation for this lending. We now know the notion that risk requires return, which basically means that assuming more risk requires more return. At least we should expect more return. We know the notion that markets are generally evaluating the prices of the securities more or less correctly. And we now know that there are conflicts between management and owners of a corporation emerging from the fact that managers do not always think that they should maximize shareholders' value. And of course, there are some measures to be taken in the other direction. Basically, this concludes our lecture and the final lecture of the level 1 of One Academy. I would like to remind you what we were speaking in this level. We were speaking about introduction to and fundamentals of finance. After that, we were speaking about money and monetary systems. After that, we were speaking on the importance and the role of corporate finance. After that, we spoke about the financial markets as an important allocator of resources. And finally, we spoke about the important financial principles. This was it for now, and I'm expecting you in the next level. Take care.